Okay, let's just skip the pleasantries and jump right into the deep end of this explainer, because honestly, we've got a massive myth to bust today. You know how most of the world tells you that becoming smart requires 12 years of grade school plus 4 years of college plus maybe another 6 years of graduate school on top of that? Yeah. But ask yourself this, does 22 years of school actually make you smart or just good at writing Reddit posts? Because let's be real, for a lot of people, all that schooling literally just leaves them broke. I mean, hey, on the bright side, when you write a post complaining about not finding a job, you're going to do it in absolute flawless English. But we aren't here for that. We're here to figure out how getting smart is actually pretty straightforward, even if you're sitting there thinking your genetics are somehow holding you back. Okay, let's dive into this. When you and I say we want to get smarter, we're not talking about some abstract philosophy here. We're talking about practical reality. We want useful skills. We want to solve complex problems and, yeah, obviously, make some money. We want to grasp difficult subjects to increase our value, and we definitely want to sound intelligent in conversations, just enough to earn respect. But not so much that people think we're insufferable nerds. It's a fine line. The problem is, most of the advice out there is just terrible. Notice this massive divide. On one hand, you have this vague internet advice. Eat blueberries because they're brain food. Drink black coffee. Sleep more. Take an IQ test. Listen to Mozart. It's literally the same 6 generic brain hacks copied from a WikiHow article into a Facebook post. But look at the stark reality on the other side. At some point, you have to actually learn stuff. Even historical geniuses sometimes slept just 2 to 4 hours a day while grinding away at a desk. So enough with the blueberries, right?
So if popping blueberries and blasting classical music aren't the magic answer, what is the actual practical first step to getting smarter today? How do we bypass all that internet fluff and get straight to the results?
Section 1. Reading like a pro and social humility. The absolute foundational step to getting smarter is reading, but notice this distinct breakdown of the benefits here. Now, fiction isn't useless, not at all. It increases your reading speed, vastly expands your vocabulary, and honestly, if you read enough dialogue, it kind of makes you feel like you have friends. But nonfiction? Oh, that is your golden ticket. Nonfiction is the key to being able to casually drop fascinating knowledge into everyday conversations and look like someone who really truly knows their history.
But here is the trap. Let's say you read a book on human history, and your friend says, "Crazy how we evolved from chimpanzees, right?" Whatever you do, do not be the person who says, "Well, actually, evolution is nonlinear, and several human-like species inhabited Earth simultaneously, none of which could even be remotely considered as chimpanzees." Ugh. In real life, saying "well, actually" before proving someone wrong makes you instantly, totally unlikable.
Notice this transformation in tone. Try changing that "well, actually" to an "and." Your friend says, "Crazy how we evolved from chimpanzees, right?" And you say, "It is crazy, right? I was reading the other day and apparently humans and chimpanzees, well, I always thought we evolved from them, but I guess we just evolved side by side." Boom. See what happened there? You're sharing knowledge, you're sounding smart, but you remain humble and approachable. You teach without making the other person feel dumb, which makes them actually respect you.
Okay, so let's say you've tracked down a book. Maybe you accidentally downloaded a PDF about cleaning, and you've learned how to not sound completely obnoxious. But how do you actually retain the skills you just read about? Because frankly, if you don't use it, your brain literally throws that information in the trash.
Section 2. The practice learning curve. Reading is only half the battle, because if your brain thinks information is useless, it deletes it. But notice this huge spike in progress on the graph. This is the 20-80 rule in action. You really only have to acquire 20% of the knowledge to master 80% of the skill. Just a little bit of practice goes an incredibly long way, yielding massive, immediate results. But the operative word there is practice.
So the absolutely crucial point here is this. You cannot passively absorb physical skills. Think about it. No one has ever learned how to tie a tie just by sitting there and watching a video of someone tying a tie. No way. You only learn how to tie a tie by watching how to tie a tie while actually tying a tie yourself. The exact same rule applies to books. If you read a chapter on cleaning a bedroom, you need to physically go clean a bedroom, literally any bedroom, to cement that knowledge into your brain.
But what happens if you can't physically practice what you just read? Like, let's say you're reading a book about cars. You can't exactly go out and buy 2 cars just to practice jump-starting a dead battery, right? So how on earth do you trick your brain into remembering it anyway? Section 3. Mental simulation hacks. So how do we build a bridge over that problem? Well, we leverage sheer psychology with these simulation steps. First,
read about the scenario, like looking at a diagram for jump-starting that dead car. Second, actively imagine the precise moment you will need this skill. Really put yourself in that high-stress situation. And third, visualize the whole process from start to finish. Find a video, pretend it's your car, and mentally walk through every single motion. By doing this vividly, you convince your brain that this information was actually used, making it essential to keep. The person who just passively glanced at the diagram, yeah, they'll completely freeze up when their car actually dies.
Now, here's where it gets really interesting. This mental simulation trick, it is literally the entire foundation of modern education. The school system is basically an institution that creates imaginary high-stakes situations, which we normally call tests and exams, to trick your brain into thinking that information you won't use for maybe 15 years is immediately dangerously useful. If you fail, you get a bad grade. It's an artificial simulation of utility meant to force your brain into memory retention.
The major flaw with school is that once the test is over, the brain realizes the threat is gone and just dumps the info. People try to combat this with passive spaced repetition or fancy mind mapping. Forget all that. The real secret is doing practice questions or inventing your own high-stakes scenarios. Convince yourself the stakes are absolutely life or death. Pretend you are literally hanging off a cliff by one arm, and the person above will only pull you up if you can name all the parts of a human cell. I know it sounds crazy, but simulating real use works far better than any generic study hack.
But that brings us to a major logistical hurdle. If practice questions and high stakes are the ultimate secret to getting smart, where do you find a resource that strips away all the internet fluff and just gives you exactly that?
Section 4. The S-tier cheat code. Let's reveal the final piece of the puzzle, and it's something almost everyone spent their teenage years actively dreading. I am talking about textbooks. Yes, textbooks. They are the absolute S-tier format for getting smart as fast as possible. When you look past the dread, you realize a textbook is an optimized cheat code. It is pure information, absolutely zero fluff, and it is packed with built-in practice questions that force your brain into that high-stakes retention mode we just talked about. Let's break down why this works so flawlessly. Pure information, built-in practice questions. There is strictly no hand-holding. There are no algorithmic distractions popping up on the side of the page trying to get you to click. And if you get truly stuck, you are forced to actively work for the answer by flipping all the way to the appendix to get help. It forces active learning at every single step of the way.
This really represents the core thesis of our explainer today. Textbooks are absolutely not for the casual learner. They simply aren't as fun as watching a slick YouTube video on the exact same topic. A video, mind you, that you will entirely forget just 1 hour later. But if you are genuinely up to the challenge, textbooks are undeniably the fastest, most direct path to actual retained intelligence. We've stripped away the myths. The tools to actually get smart are sitting right in front of you. And thankfully, there are no Blueberries or Mozart playlists required. So, armed with this reality check, what topic are you going to conquer first?